It's a good morning, sir.
Yes, good morning to you. Once again, I'm very happy to be at Family TV. But before I proceed, warm greetings from Party President, Honorable Jim Akena, UPC Fraternity at Uganda House, 6th floor, plot 8 to 10, Kampala Road. And the UPC Fraternity in the country, East Africa, Africa, and the rest of the diaspora. They usually follow this program and they like it and they are very appreciative of Church of Uganda Family TV for having this input regularly. Yes, before you even start celebrating independence at 62, you should also celebrate the person you are hosting. Because I'm Rwanga Christopher Apollo, born on 27th April 1962. I'm a product of independence.
Indeed.
And Apollo has a meaning.
Okay.
And that meaning is derived from Dr. Apollo Milton Obote, who was bestowed that honor in my family, and I was named after him. And interestingly, when I was working in Zambia from 1989, we rubbed shoulders up to the time of his death.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
Yes. We rubbed shoulders up to the time of his death.
What was the what was the issue? Because this is some of the important history that we need to know.
Dr. Apollo Milton Obote made it very clear he is the founding father of the nation.
Yes.
Any Ugandan everywhere he is and can pay homage straight away. Yes.
Okay.
So I was in touch with him much of the time.
Okay. That is really very, very interesting. And now we are looking at independence and just a brief history out of what you've seen and that and what you know about the events ahead of independence and what was really the intention for those who fought for independence. What was their image of the country that you wanted to see independent?
When you talk about which country did our founding fathers want, you need to push it a little bit further to the glorious days of Kabalega, Mwanga, Blaimu Akachi, the grandfather of Obote, within the Ugandan context. Yes, Sekabaka Mutesa the First invited the missionaries for civilization and delivered a letter to Henry Martin Stanley. That was in 1870. Then the first missionaries came in 1877. This is Anglican. 1878, the Catholics came in. But much earlier on in 1840s, the Muslim or those following Islamic faith had also come in. But for them, they were very cool, interested in trading and spreading religion at one time or the other and having an influence at the royal palace. But they were alone. They were one bull in the clan. But when these other players came in now, Buganda was so much concerned. How are we going to receive these new visitors and how are we going to monitor these new visitors? So let us put them within the royal enclosures of our palaces, such that all our ladders can look at whatever they are doing. Little did they know that they were exposing their pages. These are younger people they bring in the monarchy to be trained in future roles. Little did they know that they are exposing their chiefs and any other important person into contact. And in that contact, these people have come from Europe when they have some religious and political differences, which now they directly transmitted to the Buganda society. And when Buganda society received these new players, and the new players were talking a certain language, which was undermining some of our traditional authorities, traditional power, we were bound to have a crash. Because the Bible does not hide. There is only one God, and that God is the Almighty. When they teach it and you understand it, then it is very difficult for Mwanga to create himself another image. Okay? And then the Bible, whether from the Catholic point of view or Anglican point of view, believes in one man, one wife.
Yes.
And most of our chiefs used to marry as many wives as possible in order to cement their relations. So a question had to come that you had to win off your wives and remain with one. While the traditional religion is saying you have as many as possible. So you are going to see that as much as the modern religion deepened its influence, also the traditional religion was still recruiting its followers who could not fit in.
Yeah.
Then as things moved on, others realized that now to have a say, to have a value in the Ganda society, you must be attached to a religion. Now, when our subjects started crashing, they realized that you need also an additional muscle of the military. So, our religious faith, all of them took on to acquire a muscle. And from simple religious issues, we are going to have serious religio-political polarization at the center. And since now the British and all other foreigners had come and had established themselves deep in the center of Uganda, that experience, which is negative and which is positive at the same time, was to radiate like the way the sun throws away its light, and it is radiating across Uganda. And the British also and other people who came in, they knew very well that Uganda has to be contested. Okay, because they had met in the Berlin Conference in 1884, and they set the ground rules that wherever you go, you make an effective occupation, occupy a territory. So our missionaries who came also looked at the various people who sponsored them from Europe to do something. And in the process of doing something, Mwanga realized it that a clever way is to play one group against the other. And these groups was playing against the other. They said, here the seat is more important.
Yeah.
If you don't play on our tunes, we can throw you out. If you play on our tunes, we can keep you there. So that contestation now led to a situation which could not be well handled, and eventually it even led to our people dying, whom we go to celebrate in Namugongo every 3rd June of every year. And Mwanga also was pushed from power, at times is replaced by a Muslim. When the Muslim misbehaves, Chiwewa, his brother Kalema, the Christians reorganize themselves in exile, in Ankole, in Budu. How do we do it? No, we don't have a candidate. We bring back a Mwanga. And then the religious forces come, and that's why Kampala, or the Kampala is very important. Yes. And Captain Rugadi or Kapere Rugadi, we normally talk about him. Yes. Now, with the Kapere Rugadi coming in, it was whispered that, do you know, the Egyptian, under the influence of Khedive Ismaili and his godfather, the Ottoman Empire, they had wanted to grab Uganda. And in the process, they sent in a number of Sudanese and Egyptian soldiers who even established themselves in Nepatiko and some in Bunyoro. And Kabalega wanted to be as close to them such that he can also have a muscle which can counter Buganda. So in that sort of contestation, when Lugard was whispered, he dashed that side. Of course, the Sudanese and Egyptian mercenaries had now been cut off because of the Mahdi rebellion in southern Sudan. And now they were with no supplies, they are gunning for hire, and Lugard hired them. And then he brought them into his force of the Imperial East African Company, and that is the final war Lugard fought using those soldiers, the Sudanese and Egyptians, handed him over by Salim Bey and their commander Salim Bey. Now that decisive fight meant that Lugard's side, which is connected to the British and to the Protestant, has won the battle of 1892-1893. And when that battle was won, Uganda became a British protectorate in 1894. And then from there on, the British started working out issues, and those issues they worked out ended us with the 1900 Uganda Agreement. Some call it Buganda Agreement. So that agreement is the one which now championed or guided British colonialism and imperialism in Uganda, and it is the one which set almost permanent ground rules. How did it set it? They realized that we are coming from a background where we are having serious religious political wars. How do we handle them? Have your Muslims, put them in Butambala, Gomba, Busuju. They can act as a buffer. These Catholics at times can be very slippery. Push them into Budu. And then allow Chadondo, Busiro for the Anglican and the others. Under that arrangement, again go and divide the top leadership in Buganda. Kabaka should come from more of Anglican, Prime Minister Anglican, Treasurer Anglican, but Chief Justice, leave it to the Catholics. That status quo remained. These traditionalists who have been very tough, okay, belonging to the clans, it is time to replace them by the new younger men who have come, who have fought these religious wars, and they are more sober, they are adjustable, they are flexible. So this is when Sir Apollo Kagwa is coming in. And this is when Semei Kakungulu is also coming in. But as they come in, okay, the Muzungu has realized that you have to crush Mwanga, you have to crush Kabalega. And he went for them, and they had to run away. But in the process of running away, they put up a resistance. And this resistance, we call it primary resistance. And it was not only restricted to Uganda, but also to other countries. But since our consideration is more on Uganda, this primary resistance led Mwanga and Kabalega to run to Lango, where now they found the grandfather of Obote. This is Blaimu Akachi, who had even sent some soldiers to train with Kabalega's army, the Abarusula. And now they said, this is the time now to teach the white man a lesson. And they put up a very serious fight in Dokoro there. Semei Kakungulu was looking for promotion, for honors, for what? Followed them and grabbed them. Our brothers, our kings were now exiled to Seychelles. Okay? And Ibrahim Akachi now lost it with his people. But now you are going to find that Dr. Apollo Milton Obote, in all his wills, whether verbal or written, he does not talk more about his father. He talks more about the great-grandfather. This is Ibrahim Akachi, who received Mwanga, who received Kabalega, and they planned now to take on the British forces. So, and even he made it clear that once he dies, he wants to be buried next to the grave of his great-grandfather, Ibrahim Akachi. Okay? Because Ibrahim Akachi put up a diplomatic fight, put up a military fight, and that inspiration is the one which now raised the issues, all questions to the Musazis and later generations who played the secondary resistance. This is modern nationalism. They were looking back. When I take you to other countries, in Tanzania, you are going to see Majimaji, okay, putting up that fight and saying our our water will diffuse the white man. In Zimbabwe, you are going to see Chimulenga coming in, uniting the Shona and the Veres in that Chimulenga war. Even all the modern nationalists in Zimbabwe, they always pay homage to that Chimulenga war. In South Africa, you are seeing Bambata rebellion. In Namibia, you are seeing Namaherero rebellion. Even issues are still being handled by Germany. How to compensate the Namaherero people. Okay. In Nigeria, we are seeing Jaja Apobo, who is even questioning, you are talking of this protection. Yes. Protection from who? Then, of course, also we have the illustrious Samuel Eto'o, who tortured the French. So when you combine all that secondary resistance, it gives us another springboard. And that springboard, again, also, you are going to see that it is embedded in the colonial policies. Because when colonialism came in, they established schools.
Yes.
And these schools gave wider visions to the Nkurumazi, to the Nyererezi, to Kenyatta, to the Obotes. And essentially, these were missionary boys who are now trained good responsibility, what have you, rights, values, and it is that now which they pushed it. And when they pushed it further, you find that our brothers and sisters now are getting linked to the descendants of who had been taken in slave trade. This is the generation of Marcus Garvey, Dubois, who now start fidgeting to show that a Pan-African can do something which can restore dignity to the continent, which can bring forward the continent. Okay, and we see the fruits with the first Pan-African Congress, second Pan-African Conference, third Pan-African Conference, fourth, and the fifth one is more critical. This is the 5th Pan-African Congress in Manchester, 1945. That one now came with a template of how we should push with the decolonization and independence struggle. And Nkrumah participated, Kenyatta participated, Kamuzu Banda participated, Celeste Kama participated, the likes of Namidu Azikiwe, the likes of Seda Senghor, all those participated. So it lit the fire. Based on the primary resistance, based on our brothers who had been enslaved in America, and they have got the entire picture, and they have the template which we shared. Buyindi picked it much faster and got her independence in 1947. Our veterans who had fought in the Second World War also came imbued with more good ideas and asking, we have fought for the British, why don't we fight for our side? So all those are now coming in, and they are now giving a clear picture that Musaz, what to fight for is there. How is our agriculture? How is our cotton prices? Where are the banks to help us? Where are the marketing systems we control? All those became burning issues, ammunitions. And why do you have hereditary chiefs? We want elected leadership, chiefs. So those were very good ammunitions of 1945 riots, which were in Uganda and were crushed. And Musaz also was crushed, but he did not give up. He remembered our primary resistance, that Mwanga never gave up, Kabalega never gave up, Ibrahim Okachi never gave up. So again in 1949, they are even more serious. They are saying, Kabaka, if you are killing us, you kill us. Our demands of 1945 riots were never attended to. We are now back in a full gear. Now the British had to put on special lenses that these people are gaining momentum. They are gaining momentum. What do? We need to introduce in some reforms. Now they banned Ignatius Kangave's political vehicle. But he said, now, this cannot be the end of the road. He assembled some little money and went to London, where now he met George Padmore. That was one of the leading Pan-Africanists from the Caribbean, who was even assigned to work with Russia and he became even an advisor to Nkrumah, and Nkrumah adopted him in his government. Then there was a British rebelling minister who was very friendly to African cause of decolonization and independence, Fena Brockway, also came in. Then there is Dr. Suzy. They told Ignatius Kangave Musaz, no more wasting time, go for it straight. Form a political party, and a political party should be inclusive, and you use that as a vehicle to demand independence. Kangave was a good student, and they told him that before we do that, we need to improve the welfare of your people. And we shall send volunteers who will fine-tune things for you. And the volunteer who first came was Dr. Shepard, and they landed there in Katwe, which was their headquarters of Musazi's activity and the African town, because they were not allowed to come in Kampala. Okay. Then
so is that the reason that place is called Pan-African Square?
Yes. So Katwe was there as their headquarters, and the first American landed there, moved to Chagwe, moved to Budu, moved to Bulemezi, organized the farmers into cooperative societies. And it is now that foundation which led to Kangave Musaz to announce a political party in March 1952 as Uganda National Congress. Not segregative, very inclusive. And it is very important to know that Dr. Apollo Milton Obote by that time had left Makerere and was working in Jinja. He was part of the founding delegation from Busoga, which was led by
UNC.
By Justice Lubogo. And he came, they worked it out, and they were very happy. And the Uganda National Congress had that militant motto known as one man, one vote, self-government now. It was also a successful motto which Nkrumah and his CPP, this is the Conventional People's Party, used to secure independence in Ghana in 1957 March, to be precise. Now, adding up all that, the Muzungu started panicking and said, this fire is too much coming from UNC, we must do some things. They realized that they had put Buganda in a special position in the 1900 agreement. And they had given Buganda special privileges from the 1900 agreement. Now they said, if we are to move for independence, independence means equality, means unity, means progress. We must tame some of these issues. So when Governor Cohen called Mutesa to discuss the details and to sign some amendments, Mutesa simply said, I don't operate alone. I have a Ruchiko, I have a cabinet, so let me go back and consult, then I give you the answer. Then Governor Cohen knew the details of the 1900 agreement, and said the 1900 agreement stipulates you will be called Kabaka, provided you follow to dot what Her Majesty's government in England is telling you. By behaving like that, you are making the 1900 agreement invalid, and I'm remaining with no choice except to deport you. And look through the window, the plane is waiting for you for your deportation. Kabaka said, let it be, I'm ready for it. And Kabaka got deported. Now as he got deported, the news broke out, and even his sister fainted, collapsed, and he died. But the British, being very stubborn imperial power, they played another cunning game of wanting to have a fresh Kabaka, a new one. Then the Ganda culture also became militant, that we don't install a Kabaka when the other one is still surviving. Okay, that is a taboo. So that arrangement failed. Then UNC, which had already been formed, and all other Ugandans saw it that it is an attack to all of us.
Yeah.
And they jumped into it, they drummed the Kabaka's return and conditional what. Then the British sensed that the temperature is not conducive. We have to have a Namirembe conference. Sir Hancock was sent in and chaired and he took charge of those meetings. But as he took charge of those meetings, even Governor Cohen came in. So the Namirembe meetings now were upgraded to a Namirembe conference. They were at the hero here of Namirembe Church, where the cathedral is. Okay. Then they were upgraded to Namirembe conference. And as they were upgraded to Namirembe conference, they reached a situation where now they were told, can we modify this 1900 agreement? And we are in line as a constitutional monarchy. So it was also equally done, and we are in line with the constitutional monarchy. Then they said, let Kabaka come back and sign this agreement. This is now how we ended up with the Namirembe Agreement of 1955. The discussion is started from 1954, and ended that time. And Mutesa came back. He came back, he was no longer the ordinary person from Budo. Now he was a big man with all the support across the country, not a Buganda support alone. And when he saw that support, he simply said, you have to exploit this politically. And he gave a demand to the British. Can you remove Buganda's affairs from colonial office to foreign office? Now that meant that Uganda was starting the journey of political separatism, and which was going to affect our journey towards independence.
At that point, let's take a short commercial break. When we return, of course, this is a very, very important history, especially when we talk about independence, that we really have to understand as we celebrate the independence. We are taking a short commercial break. We shall be back.
Issues at hand, powered by
Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe. Comfort and luxury at its best.
This is Church of Uganda Family TV, enriching lives. Issues at hand, powered by
Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe. Comfort and luxury at its best.
Welcome back from that break. This is Issues at Hand. We are having a lens into Uganda's political journey, and it is important to understand how we really come to independence. And in the first part, we had a very long journey way back from 18s, and now we are at a point where we have the Namirembe Agreement of 1955. And of course, most of the people who have read history, I think, start to pick it up from here at the Namirembe Agreement, and that is where we broke up from. But let us pick it from the Namirembe Agreement.
Yeah, but before we pick it up, the Namirembe Agreement,
yes,
it would be unfair for the listeners and the viewers if we don't mention of the wonderful Catholics who felt that this 1900 agreement has never delivered. It made them, it put them into a minority position that was codified. And now they wanted to see how things can improve within Kabaka and Mengo establishment. And they were led by Kasolo, and they formed the Democratic Party on, I think, 4th October 1954. And initially, Democratic Party tried to readdress the inadequacies of the 1900 agreement. But then later on they realized that it is not the 1900 agreement they must address. They must address the entire problems of Uganda. This is how now they are also joining the journey of UNC into the entire country. Yes, some other people, because of inner feelings, they may not want to explain it that way, but that is how the journey started.
So in other words, UNC was like a political bus,
yes,
that was harboring everyone who has the same mind.
But Mengo rejected because Musazi went to Mengo and pleaded that, can you give me a chief? Can you give me someone to make me mobilize or even head this organization? They refused. And Ignatius Kangave Musazi, with his cleverness, jumped to other places outside Buganda. I may not blame Kabaka and Menge establishment. Remember, Musazi, wherever he was demonstrating, they were talking of elected chief, elected chief. Now, elected chief has implications in Mengo.
Because the system is hereditary.
Yes, the system is hereditary. You are talking of elected. Yes, that one had a problem, and it may have changed some forces. So, Ignatius Kangave Musazi was not seen with a proper agenda. So that one you need to put it into the context also. And knowing that now momentum is joining, is increasing. Then other players also came in and formed the other political parties. And the momentum now increased. Now as the momentum was increasing, the British again realized that we have to work it out very fast for Ugandans to first have a democratically elected few members. So in 1958, they organized the first legislative elections. Some people ignore that election, though it was also very important. Okay? But Buganda came out strongly that we cannot have such type of arrangements because our Kabaka is hereditary. And we feel that those arrangements are not protecting the throne. So Buganda never participated. And the electoral law or the ordinance of that time allowed some societies to ignore. So UNC participated and got 5 seats. One in Busoga, one in Bukeda, I think, one in Acholi, Elango, and there were 5, and there were 5. Then independents got 4, and DP got West Nile and Madi. So there were 10 seats, And that is when now Obote, who had just come from Kenya with all his experience, found his way into the Legiko and in the parliament. Since he had done a lot of great politics in Kenya, where he was a leader of the Welfare Society, where he was a leader of Kenya African Union, campaigned for Tom Mboya, the British felt a bit shaken, and they realized this man may also have Mau Mau connections. And they grabbed him, they locked him up. After being locked up, and they looked for evidence and they could not get it because they actually Obote had met Dedan Kimathi, the leader of Mau Mau. And the leader of Mau Mau wanted the Obote to take an oath. Obote said, I'm not a Chukuyu Nyamu here as an ambassador of UNC, and here is the letter which is making me an ambassador. So Obote was spared. But I think the British were aware a bit of that. So when they tried to squeeze him, they could not get evidence, and they released him. Obote simply handed over the files of Kenya African Union and melted to home. And found when the Lango people were discussing the land question, because the British wanted Lango to adopt a form of land like that one of Uganda, where there is a mile. For them, they insisted this is a traditional land, customary land. We don't go with those issues. Those issues can have complications for you in the future, as they are now having complications in Uganda. Because if now I'm the parent with a mile and I die, my children who have inherited, you cannot stop them from mortgaging my property.
Exactly.
Okay, so the elders in Lango so very far than us, and you may have those problems. So in the mix of that now, Obote enters Parliament, Legiko. And as he enters Legiko with all his experience, when he started talking, everybody recognized that the Super Moses we are looking for, I think is here. And one of the people who saw the Super Moses was the mother-in-law to Mutesa. This is Mama Pumula Chisosonkole. Okay? Pumula by Chisosonkole, by the way, is a Zulu from South Africa. Maybe that's why he even had those special lenses and experience. Who went to study, I think, in nursing in London, and they met with Chisosonkole. So when he came back, when he saw Obote and all his contributions, which are sober, refined, smart, said, you come, let us have a talk here. And appreciated openly. I have been following you in your contributions in Logical. I think you mean well for the country. You understand the sensitivities of the country. What have you? I need you to get a close working relationship with my son in law. However, I will have to organize a meeting. And then Obote requested if we can carry someone, because Obote believes in once you are a leader, you don't go for a meeting alone. So the choice, he floated in Abu Mayanja's name, but he was not so sure if Abu Mayanja would be accepted, because he was so much of a radical. Yes, from Makerere, from where a radical, talking tough. So good enough, Abu Mayanja was accepted, and he went to Bamunanika. The Abu Mayanja performed the rituals of going down on the ground, and Obote was spared. Though most people now will say, Obote went on the ground and now turned against his friend, what have you? He's treacherous. That was not the true story. So after discussing whatever they discussed, they all agreed that let these things remain confidential, remain in secrecy, and we continue meeting. Okay? Because they realized that Uganda is at a breaking point if they don't handle issues responsibly. And this breaking point, it is not Obote or Mutesa or Bendikito causing it. It is embedded in the system the British groomed or created. And this system, most Ugandans don't understand it. It is the indirect rule system, where they said each society must be on its own. And that time it was under a sort of, okay, like that. Then in 1945, after the World War, they said most of these African countries will get independence. So those societies now were made the administration with their own administration now intact. That meant that Soga could not reach Buganda or could not integrate with Buganda. Munyoro could not integrate with Mutoro. Mutoro could not integrate with Munyankole, with Muchiga. We are in that sort of situation. And now when independence was showing some signs, others realized that there are posts to share. now the politicians of this land, together with the lawyers, started now dashing to kingdom areas, telling the Mukama of Bunyoro that, my friend, 45. Something may land, and we are here to talk to you. Others dashed to Ankole, others dashed to Chabazinga, 45. Negotiate from this angle. Then even Kabaka and Menga establishment, out of blue there was a Kakamega group, which is responsible for the formation of KY. And the Kakamega group was saying, us, we are a solidarity group with you from Wudo and all ex-Budonians. Okay? So you cannot be Kabaka there when you are not protecting your interests. We should go for social activities. We should do what? You should have a relaxed mind. When politics now was coming in, they said, you cannot be, we must protect your throne. How do we do it? So they had their meeting, and as the meeting was going on, one person came in late and was hinted that, no, I'm from Kakamega. Because Uganda had the signposts of Kakamega, even in Buganda, in Jinja, because Kakamega was a war center for Second World War in Kenya, Western Kenya. So the signposts started directing people from this way.
So from Kampala,
yes,
Kakamega,
yes,
Kakamega is
yes. So this one who came late, they said, let us call our club Kakamega and let it do the best. This is how Kakamega, which was being championed by Masembe Kabali, who eventually was the Secretary General, the person who was more responsible for KY, came up with the KY. So these dynamics are now starting to come in. They are starting to come in. And from there now, the white man said, okay, what do we do now? We need to form up a committee. This is a YOD committee. But as all this was happening, the main party which had started nationalism in Uganda, modern nationalism, had a serious issue in November, precisely December 1958. This is when now the chairman of Uganda National Congress, this Jole Joy Chiwanuka, had some misunderstandings with the party president, Ignatius Kangave Musazi, and things did not become very clear. Nobody knew why. So they went to Mbale, they had a delegate conference, and the delegate conference decided to kick out Ignatius Kangave Musazi. And they decided to bring in Obote in absentia. Obote was in Kampala. Yes. Then as they decided to bring in Obote in absentia, they said, you fetch him from Kampala. You bring him from Kampala. If he refuses to come, you give us a call and we decide the next line of action. So in the process, Obote went, and when he went straight to Mount Elgon Hotel where Jole Joy was, and Dr. Kununka, the Secretary General of UNC, they all stood up and greeted him, Mr. President. And Obote asked this sort of curious greeting, where is it coming from? That, you don't know. We have asked Ignatius Kangave Musazi, you are the new party president. Prepare an acceptance speech. We take you back to the delegate conference and start running.
Just like that.
Yes, the delegates have agreed. Then Obote put a condition. I need to talk to my party president, Ignatius Kangave Musazi. and I need to talk to Lango delegation. Then they brought to Musazi, and Musazi spilled the beans. He says, no, I was in Jinja. The Egyptians who were monitoring the waters of River Nile and Lake Victoria, they whispered to me that our Egyptian government has given some financial help to Uganda National Congress, but it is at our embassy in London. Can you go there and you collect it? So Ignatius Kangave Musazi went to London. Reaching there, they brought the records that your national chairman, Jole Joy Chiwanuka, has taken the money. Jole Joy Chiwanuka is the grandfather of our Attorney General. Okay, Chiriowa Chiwanuka. And now the Ugandans who are seeing Jole Joy Chiwanuka back, they even nicknamed him Alidechi. Such that now is called Jole Joy Chiwanuka Alidechi. Others simply call him Alidechi. Meaning, what has he eaten that is now making him powerful? It is that money, and he refurbished his bar in Katwe there, White Nairo Club. Then he went on to revolutionize, to set up a newspaper known as Express, and later on, a team known as Express. But Obote, as he listened, he did not doubt what Ignatius Kangave Musazi told him. But he said in his experience, he cannot go to address an acceptance speech and put in such details. They will cause divisions. So when he went to deliver a speech, he edited that and told all the delegates to prepare for the YOD Commission, the Constitutional Commission, which the British had now set up, the colonial government had set up, to go across the country to solicit views on how Uganda should be governed. Remember, we are having 10 elected legislative members. Now the British want to broaden it, and we move towards a full internal self-rule. And the mathematics was we may have 80 MPs or 90 or 120. And now in that arrangement, Obote focused UNC members to that and appointed the people like Nadiope, Obwangoru, himself, and I think Magezi also, okay, to be part of the Constitutional Committee on YOD Commission. Then I think also DP appointed the 5, 2 Asians and 2 Europeans. The committee traversed the whole country. But UNC being an experienced political party, it trained people how to hand over petitions. And the petitions were leading to a certain direction. Professor Rule interpreted the situation better and said, these British may not give us independence. We need to have a force which shows that we are ready to receive the independence. So he called the meeting at his home. DP initially did not attend. The first meeting collapsed. Then the second meeting took off. And Benedicto told them, you don't need to look for other political parties or to dismantle or merge or what. I'm here with the DP. Okay. Then eventually even he left the meeting. And as he left the meeting, those who remained said, but we must know Mengo's position. This is where we shall have issues. Because Mengo may have other calculations. Okay. So they tried to seek Mengo's position. Then later on the report was released. I think it was December 1959 there. It was released. And when it was released, it earmarked that we are going to have an election in March 1961 based on 80 constituencies. And the Buganda again is jumped up that there is no election here. So the registration, which was supposed to be in Buganda to cover about 700 people, ended up registering about 45,000 people. And when it came to actual voting, less than 15,000 people voted in the 21 constituencies. UPC won 1 constituency from Buganda, DP took 20, added on the other 23 it had picked from other regions, and it was there with the 44 and making an internal self-government first. But that government DP made, it was technically faulty. It was faulty in this sense that even UPC, which did not make more votes, I mean more seats, it had a higher number of votes. That is one aspect. The second aspect, the opposition, the boycott of elections in Uganda, which was real, would not enable a government to govern and move well, because they were not part of the central government. How are you going to govern such a huge area with a mandate of less than 15,000 votes? And yet our vice president, Nadiope, in his constituency alone, I think Busoga West, those who voted for him were over 21,000. So it was very clear that the victory DP has secured, it was defective. And yet DP was pushing, together with Benedicto, that we want the next elections in 1966. Okay, after 5 years. So this now was the basis of the first Lancaster meeting. And the delegations were picked as are reflected in the parliament there, together with the political parties. Now at Lancaster, the British authority realized that the most stubborn and difficult groups to deal with, there is DP, there is UPC, there is Kabaka and Menge establishment group. However, I've not done a service to the listeners. They haven't seen how UPC how UNC has transited to UPC. Yes. But that happened in March 1960 when Obote took over from Mbale as a party president. His first assignment was to study Rwesiba and his team, who had put up a UPU, Uganda People's Union Party, which was a parliamentary party, from those four independents who were nominated in 1958. Then he appointed Kakonge, John Kakonge, who had just come from India, do handle those consultations quietly and inform me in confidence quietly. And we studied. When they studied, they realized that all those members of UPU were formerly UNC members who simply got annoyed. So it was easy to place certain buttons with them
and bring them back.
Yes, and now they agreed to meet on 9th March 1960. And when they met, they agreed to do a merger. And they said, since you are UPU and we are UPC, we adopt you minus any hesitation. Okay? Since you are now UPU and we are UNC, pick one letter from your side. So UPU surrendered UP.
Oh.
Yes. Then they said, since you are UNC, also surrender one letter. And the C was borrowed from UNC. So we now had UPC, born on March 1960.
We have 1 minute to go, but how do you wrap up all this history and how it is important, especially in these celebrations?
Yeah, that history was showing that even when we get independence on 9th March 1960, 9th October 1962, we have a lot of things to do ahead, which are in a transitional nature. Okay, our constitution, we shall go on perfecting it and doing things in a transitional nature. And that is how you are seeing. We started with the Queen of England as the president of Uganda. Nkrumah had to assist us with the legal draftsmen who helped us a lot, experts, and we changed the law. and we asked the Queen, who was being represented by the Governor General Sir Walter Coates. So Mutesa became now officially the president of Uganda in 1963, I think October, November there. That is where now the transitional nature of the constitution is coming in. Then there was a clause also that not later than 2 years, you will have to handle the referendum of the lost counties, that is Buyaga, Bugangas and what. To effect that, it created problems. Our friend was fearing, he was fearing to do it, until Obote made an amendment in Parliament that when a president fails to sign a bill 3 times, the Prime Minister can sign on his behalf, and that is how it happened. Okay.
Mr. Ranga, this is, I think we cannot complete this history, but at least we now have a picture of how independence really came through. It wasn't something that the British just offered us on a silver plate. It was a real struggle, and there are people who committed their lives, their energy, their expertise, and their experience, and their nationalism and patriotism to see that Uganda achieves its independence that we celebrate now. It's been a pleasure having you from where we started from up to now. Edwin Austin Mukalas is my name, and from the entire team of we have Andrew, we have Didmas, and Jonan. Of course, we wish you a blessed day.
Issues at Hand, powered by
Protea Hotel by Marriott Entebbe. Comfort and luxury at its best.